please.
Commissioner Patton.
Here.
Commissioner Barwick.
Here.
Commissioner Webb.
Here.
Commissioner Stecklin.
Here.
Mayor Absher.
Here. As you all may have recognized, we have a lot of Girl Scouts in the audience tonight, and I've asked Remy Bukowski, am I saying that right? She's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, so we're going to all stand and put our hands over our hearts, face the flag, and wait for Remy to start us off.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes. All right, come on up. You're the co-leader?
Yes.
Is that the right title?
There's a lot of us.
A lot of co-leaders?
Yes, there's 7 of us.
Okay, with me I have Allison Weaver, who, is this working?
Yep. It's working.
Allison Weaver, who is apparently one of many co-leaders of, is it Troop 8077?
807.
8077 of the Girl Scouts. And this is Girl Scout Week, and so I have the pleasure and honor of reading a proclamation on behalf of the city of Marion. Whereas on March 12th, 2022 marks the 110th anniversary of Girl Scouts of the USA, the largest and most impactful leadership program for girls in the world. And whereas since our beginnings, the Girl Scouts have emphasized public service and civic engagement and have fostered a sense of community in girls. And Girl Scouts works to champion the ambitions, cultivate the talents, and develop the skills of girls to confidently pursue their passions and make the world a better place. And whereas girls say that Girl Scouts supports their mental health and is an accepting, safe space where they feel free to be themselves and where leaders and other girls are sources of support during difficult times. And whereas Girl Scouts offers girls 21st century programming in science, technology, engineering, and math, the outdoors, entrepreneurship, and beyond, helping girls develop invaluable life skills. And whereas Gold Award Girl Scouts already take on projects that have a measurable and sustainable impact on a community by assessing a need, designing a solution, and completing a project, and inspiring others to sustain it. And whereas today, more than 50 million, wow, that's a lot, 50 million women, trailblazers, visionaries, and leaders are Girl Scout alums who have made the world a better place. And whereas Girl Scouts of Southern Illinois serves nearly 5,000 girls and engages over 2,000 adult members in 40 counties in Southern Illinois. Therefore, I, Michael Absher, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city, do hereby applaud Girl Scout movement and Girl Scouts of Southern Illinois for providing girls with a safe, inclusive, all-girls space where they can hone their skills and develop leadership abilities. And I declare the week of March 6th through the 12th, 2022 as Girl Scout Week in Marion, Illinois.
Put them in front of you. Yeah, you just sit on up there. Okay, I will. Here. All
Are you
right,
here to
girls.
promote the sale of cookies or give them away?
We're going to do both. That's right. We're seasoned.
Jim wanted to know.
Let's do cadets and seniors. Go ahead and line up in the back. But
I will tell you,
crouch just a bit.
one of these
Okay.
teams is taking their girls, the 8077, we're taking our girls, our older girls, to Savannah this summer. And we
Seniors,
ordered
you're going to go right in front.
so that none of them have to pay.
Are we brownies
So,
and daisies?
needless to say, we still have a lot.
Okay, come on, brownies and daisies. You're going to come right in front and just filter in.
No,
Yep.
you guys are fine. I
Filter
don't
in.
need to be seen.
Here, how about daisies? How about you guys kneel? Can you sit on your knees in front, daisies?
Oh, wow.
Can you sit on your knees in front?
How come you put the tall girls in front of me?
I know. Okay, big girls, brownies, and juniors, I want you to just crouch down. Yep. And then, yep, big girls down front, too. I'm gonna let Erin do our picture taking.
Not trying to sit on your lap, I promise. All right, everybody smile. Cheese. Girl Scout cookies.
Cookies.
Thank you.
Yay, good job.
One more.
Okay,
Yeah, just one more.
Sorry, Girl Scout dad.
Here, it's
Girl Scout dad.
pictures with you.
All right, 1, 2, 3.
Had a peanut butter chocolate cookie.
Okay, girls. Girls, if you had a box that we told you was a treat, look, leave your
Peanut butter chocolate ones?
Peanut butter chocolate. He wants peanut butter chocolate.
How much are they?
How much are they?
That means I can get more than one box. I need four boxes. What else you got? We're gonna get this money. No, I'll buy 4. Give me 2 reds. What's that new kind? I'll take one of you. I'll take that one too. I'll sell you mine. Why don't you try to sell some more?
Hold on, we have some that were
You got my money, right?
Thank you so Okay, Girl Scouts, we're gonna go ahead and walk outside to meet moms and dads, okay? I know that. Somebody's jacket.
That's all right. I'll do that, then I gotta go later. I'll figure something out. Anybody selling milk back there? I get $10 for a gallon of milk.
We should play it ahead, like a combo meal. Come on, sweetie, ready? Let's go find your mom. Yeah. Let's go. Thank you. Thank you, we appreciate it.
Thank you. See if you can turn that on, see how much noise it's going to be. A lot of noise in it. Yeah, we'll leave it for now, we'll see. Okay, that will move us on to item number 4, our public comments. We do have an item on the agenda tonight that is of interest, I believe, to a lot of people here. That's on 6, maybe more than this, that a lot of interest, I don't know, but item 6C, which I know that is contested, so to speak, and there'll be opportunity for Mr. Ross to speak and anybody else that wants to talk about that. So relative to this section, if you guys don't mind, I mean, guys on the council, I'd like to also have a section around item 6C that we can hear from interested parties. So if you're here to talk about item 6C, you'll have an opportunity to do that when we get to 6C. So otherwise, if there's anyone that would like to address the council, this is the time to do so, subject to ordinance 3128, amended by 3134, both of which I believe are up here on the counter next to the flower arrangement. So would anybody like to address the council?
My name's Jimmy Johnson. I'm a Christian patriotic constitutional American. I'm a Trump Republican, and I'm an armed and discharged veteran. be nominated or varied with a good conduct award and honorable discharge. And I guess if Mayor Absher can read from a cheat sheet, I guess I'm going to do the same tonight. I appreciate if I wasn't interrupted. I've timed myself. I hope I can just get it in 5 minutes time. I hope I can. And I know my limitations. Recently, I spoke to Marion Attorney Stephen Stone about contesting signatures on election ballots. I am of the belief that only Christian ballots are for signature in Williamson County are contested, while Freemasonic ballots are not. Freemasonic Commissioner Brent Gentry has been witness discarding signatures on election ballots. The Luciferian Masonic Lodge wants to totally control Williamson County government, yet Christians outnumber Masons 50-1. The Masons get the top government positions and get most of the high-paying jobs in Williamson County, Illinois, and that's grossly unfair. That justifies righteous indignation by Christians. Christians should wake up as to how the Masonic Lodge is used and controlled by the international banking elite, American Rockefellers and European Rothschilds, to enslave Christian poor and non-Freemasonic citizens in the United States of America for a Luciferian, Khazar, Ashkenazi, Jewish control of the whole earth with their one world government. Masons don't go to jail, prison, or mental institutions in Illinois or the rest of the 50 states. Not one Mason has ever experienced a death penalty for murder in 240 years. The death penalty is no longer biblical because of this unjust bias. It was the Masonic Lodge that has created a kangaroo court system in the United States. Only non-Freemasonic and Christian poor Americans are railroaded by Masonic law enforcement, lawyers, and judges to jail, prison, and mental institutions with Freemasonic-controlled psychologists. Did you ever wonder why the old Masonic Lodge in Heron and the Masonic Lodge in Marion are next to funeral home crematoriums? And why coroners elected Freemasons from both political parties? Christian values should be brought into local, state, and federal government. My question is Brent Gentry helping to skim off property taxes, monies paid by Christians for the Masonic Lodge to illegally fund the lodge's activities? Former Williamson County Commissioner Ron Ellis could smell a fish. He consistently claimed that the county's finances needed a new auditor. He stated that there's a conflict of interest since the same accountant with the main budget consultant for the county. He was the same accountant with the budget consultant. Democratic Brent Gentry, Republican Jim Razor, soon-to-be Republican Sheriff Jeff Dietrich, Justin Mays, Democratic Sheriff Benny Vick, the Williamson County Board for the most part, Marion Police Chief David Fitz, Marion Mayor Mike Absher, Williamson County Chief Judge Steve Green, all belong to the Luciferian religion of the Masonic Lodge. Lucifer the light bearer is the god of Freemasonry revealed at the 33rd degree level of the Masonic Lodge in the Illuminati. 33rd degree European Luciferian Jews control the Freemasonic House of the Temple in Washington, D.C. for the European Rothschild family. This is treason to the United States. The dues money of the white Freemason has filled Jewish treasuries for centuries. You cannot rightfully be a Christian and a Mason both. You must choose which God to serve, Jesus or Lucifer. Those hearing my voice who claim to be Christians must refute the blood and death oaths of the Masonic Lodge, which allow demons of spiritual darkness to operate in their lives, or they will be cursed. The line is now drawn. You can no longer be double-minded, and you will become unstable. Jesus returns soon. Secret Freemasons should have no place in public life. Freemasonry should be outlawed. Freemasonry is witchcraft, and you cannot be a high Satanist priest until you become a Freemason first.
Anybody else? All right, moving on to the consent agenda then, we have 3 items, A, B, and C. Anybody on the council want any item, A, B, or C, voted upon separately and removed from the consent agenda? Anybody from the audience want any of those items removed and voted upon separately? Okay, if not, we'd entertain a motion to pass the consent agenda.
I'd make a motion that we would accept the consent agenda 5A through C as given. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton?
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick?
Yay.
Commissioner Webb?
Yay.
Commissioner Stecklin?
Yay.
Mayor Absher?
Yay. Under old business, we had tabled this last meeting, because Doug Phillips from the street department needed to check with IDOT on something relative to this, and did. And so now it's back on the agenda. This has to do with the sidewalk from State Street to Fair Street.
Mayor, this is a resolution basically to spend the MFT money, $50,000, which is our 20% of the project that we owe. I think the total project came in at $202,000, so the rest is federal highway dollars. So it's 20% is $50,000, and that's what this resolution is for. And I put that in form of a motion.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton?
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick?
Yay.
Commissioner Webb?
Yay.
Commissioner Stecklin?
Yay.
Mayor Absher?
Yay. Under new business, building and code services, item 6. It looks like we've got 3 zoning board approvals to either affirm or overrule. Item A is a special use permit on a pole barn on a lot in R2, 1615 Emory Lane. Is anybody here to talk about that tonight? That item? Yes, sir.
Have nothing to say, Mayor, just wanted to see if you guys could pass it.
Oh, okay. It's your pleasure.
I will make a motion then to affirm the zoning board's approval, special use permit to build a pole barn, 2-acre lot in an R2 general family residential zone at 1615 Emory Lane, PIN number 0612354-006.
I'll second.
Any questions or discussion on this? You do not have a comment to make, correct?
I'm fine, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton?
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick?
Yay.
Commissioner Webb?
Yay.
Commissioner Stecklin?
Yay.
Mayor Absher?
Yay. Item 6B. Another special use permit for Robin's Nest on College Street for, I guess this is in a home, right? Is that right? For infants? But that's also an R2 requiring a special use permit.
No discussion.
So we need a motion before we discuss it.
I'd make a motion then to affirm the zoning board's approval of a special use permit to offer childcare for infants and toddlers in an R2 general family residential zone at 412 East College Street, PIN number 07-18-392-020.
I'll second.
Any questions on this? Anybody here to speak on this side?
I do have a concern or a question. It wasn't too many weeks ago we denied someone a permit to put a beauty shop in a residential area. I'm assuming we had no one that was objecting to this, or?
That's correct, no one objected.
Is it directly north of the existing facility?
Directly south.
Oh, I'm sorry, south. Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah. Is it right on the corner?
Is there one house in between?
It borders the
Yeah.
playground on the
College Street, the back side of the school.
2 sides of the property border the playground.
Satisfies your question?
Yeah. You said that none of the neighbors had objected. Did anybody, have we sent anything out to the neighbors
Yeah, everyone,
Yeah.
every abutting property owner got a letter
And they
notifying
were,
them.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's all.
Any other discussion? Questions? Motion to second.
Yes.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton,
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick,
Yes.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Stefan,
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Item 6C, okay. This one I know people are here to talk about, so let me propose how we step through this. How many of you are here because of this item, if you would mind raising your hand? Okay. So, first of all, I'd like the applicant, Darrell Ross, who's here, to explain what this is, what he's proposing. And I'm not saying no one other than Mr. Beasley can speak, but I know you've been on the forefront of the opposition to this issue, so if you wouldn't mind, I'd like for you to speak with the points that you want to make, and then if anybody else has additional points. I just don't want to say the same thing over and over with several people, so if somebody else has other points they want to make, that's fine, if that's acceptable to everybody. Does that sound reasonable? Yes, no, maybe?
Well, is Mr. Ross going to speak?
Yeah.
I think yes. Is that okay?
I invite him to go ahead and speak.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you,
All right.
Council. I have owned some property on Boynton Street, on the east side of Boynton Street, by the old Creel Springs Road. I just purchased the old scrubby laundromat, and there's been some questions come up. I'm trying to get a special use permit to build. It's what it would be considered a machine shop, but it's actually an extension of my coal mining equipment parts business that I have out there now. There's been quite a bit of opposal to that. I think people think that what we're wanting to build is a large machine shop that's open to the public, and there's going to be a lot of excess traffic, a lot of added traffic coming and going from the property. It's
Get on the microphone.
Oh, sorry. But there's a lot of misconception actually about what I want to do. This is a machine shop. Technically, it is a machine shop because we're going to have machines in there that manufacture our parts for my coal mining equipment parts business. And what I based the request for the special use on, in the section 11.8A2, it says that a combined retail and wholesale and manufacturing operation where manufacturing portion of the use is incidental to the principal use and involves not more than 5 persons employed in the manufacturing activity. I have 4 people that are employed in the manufacturing side of the business. Right now, we have our shop in Galatia, which is 20 miles away, so we will manufacture our parts at the shop in Galatia. We bring them down to Marion, do the assembly in Marion, take them back out to Galatia to do the testing, the pressure testing, it's a lot of hydraulic components, and then we bring them back to Marion, put them in inventory, and ship all of our inventory out of our Marion location. So what we would like to do is bring everything to a Marion location, centralize everything to avoid all the back and forth, and to have more control over what the day-to-day goes on in the day-to-day operations. I brought Becky Kopolansky with me. She runs day-to-day operations of my businesses. I know that there were some pictures taken of the facility that we have in Galatia now. It's out in the country. Becky has some pictures of, copies of the pictures and some pictures of what actually the shop looks like. And it's not the neatest shop out there because it is out in the country. We don't own the building. We rent the building. We share the property with the owner of the building. He has a lot of his parts or junk, I guess, basically, that he stores around the building. His house is across the street from where we are in Galatia now, so he actually owns the property. And we want to move away from that and get everything centralized here. And I guarantee you that I own those apartments to the west side of where I'm proposing to build this shop. It's a pretty substantial investment, and I'm not going to put anything next to that investment that is going to deter me from being able to rent to good quality tenants in those apartments. I don't know if anybody is familiar with the properties that we own in Marion. We do keep them neat, We do want good tenants. I'm not gonna put something someplace where a good potential tenant comes and looks at an apartment, and they're like, well, I like the apartment, but I don't wanna live next door to that, you know, so, yeah, I'm confident, and I wouldn't be building it out there if I thought that it was gonna be detrimental to the property, the investment that I have. And Becky is going to explain some of the pictures that you guys have there. And Becky?
I attached 4 pictures. The first 2 are ones that I took this morning of the front of each of the shops. The second 2 are pictures that I believe Mr. Beasley provided to you. Unfortunately, the things that you see in those 2 pictures do not belong to us. Mr. Ross used to be in business with the gentleman that owns the property, and he actually uses that property for storage. He uses that property for his own personal use. So none of the things that you see in those second 2 pictures would be part of our operations, except there are 2 containers that are full of oil. Those are hydraulic oil that we use there at the shop. Here in town, we had planned on putting a corral around those. So no one would see those outside of when they're taken away. And it's about every 6 to 8 weeks. And it's also taken away on a truck and trailer, like a pickup truck and trailer. So it's not a large vehicle that takes that stuff away. Another reason that I provided the first set of pictures, in front of the one side, you will see that there are chip boxes. The chip boxes would also come to town with us. That's one of the things we have to have. But again, it would have a corral around it. So it would not be something that anyone would be able to see, except for when it was being taken away, which again, it gets taken away on a pickup truck and a trailer about every 6 to 8 weeks.
And one of the concerns was additional traffic delivering steel to our facility. We get one delivery, basically one delivery a week, and it's on a flatbed truck. Occasionally we'll have 2 trucks come in, but most often it's just going to be one additional truck a week. As far as the outbound freight, there won't be any additional outbound traffic because we bring everything to Marion now and inventory it on Boynton, and it ships out of Boynton now anyway. So the only additional traffic that the road will see is that one truck every 1 to 2 trucks every week. You know, they come in, they're there maybe 10 minutes, drop steel off, and then they're gone.
So are you running this right out of the existing laundromat right now?
No, actually, I just bought the laundromat building, and what the council approved, what the zoning board, I'm sorry, approved was the 2 lots just south of the laundromat. The more that I think about it, I own the property on the north side of my existing quality parts business. This is the property that the zoning board approved, March board approved. And the X shows the property that I own on the north side of my warehouse. And really, the more I think about it, I would rather build on the north side of my warehouse because that way, it's a better piece of ground for one thing, and it's also surrounded by my property. You know, it's my apartments on the west, my warehouse on the south, and then the scrubby new laundromat on the east. So it would really be more isolated from the public's view. And you know, I definitely wouldn't move it closer to my properties if I thought it was going to be anything that was detrimental to the residential properties in the neighborhood.
Okay, so when you say it ships out of Boynton Street anyway,
right.
That's the facility directly east of the apartments?
No, yes, it is. It's the property that's outlined in the blue.
Okay, so you're running the operation out of that building right now?
That is our warehouse and offices.
Gotcha.
And the actual manufacturing facility is in Malaysia.
So,
and you know, it would bring more tax revenue to the city and counties.
Where would your entrance be?
Yeah,
off Boynton? Or would it come off of
the entrance would be off Boynton.
So the one that's there currently?
Right.
Okay. So the point of entry would be off Boynton, and it would go back behind the building on the north side of the existing building.
If I could move it to the property that's north of my existing building,
Yeah.
the entry would come off on the west side of my existing building up into the back lot where, on the north side.
Okay.
If, where the zoning board approved, the entry would be, we would place the building so that the entry would be on the west side of the building facing our existing building, so that, there would be less exposure to the public, so, to minimize any kind of exposure to the public. And, I've had a lot of people ask me what we do in that building, the Quality Parts building. I mean, it's coal mining equipment parts, and, it's not a publicly, it's not where we have the public coming and going out of it, so this new building is going to be basically the same thing. I mean, people, if they're not inside the building, they're not going to know what's even going on inside of that building. It's going to be air conditioned and heated, so the doors will be closed, and there would be no reason for anybody to even know what's going on inside the building. But it is going to be a small machine shop. The parts that we make are small. They're not, it's not like a Pat and Marion or Shoe Brothers welding. It's all small hydraulic components is what we manufacture, and then we assemble here in town now.
So if you don't mind me asking, what would happen to the laundromat then? You just leave it as is? Or?
The laundromat we would probably use for storage, because before I bought the laundromat, Ken did re-side it, so it looks a lot better than it used to look. I mean, I plan on just leaving it there for the time being. And like I said, that again would block the view of the shop if we were allowed to move it directly behind.
Is that something that we would have to go back to the zoning board on, or can we approve that move if he wants to move it?
Wendy, that's probably a question for Wendy.
Yeah, do we know? Have we ever had that happen? No, if he decides he would like to move it to that piece of property in the back versus where the zoning board approved the special use permit.
I think it'd have to go back.
Has to go back for a special use to be moved over there.
Because at this point, it's only approved
Right.
for the current location.
That was my question, yeah. I didn't know if we, yeah.
You would have to go back through the full process.
Is that part of the trailer court on the north side of your proposal to put it on lot 3?
Yes.
That's all trailer park
Right.
property?
Yeah. Yeah, everything to the north of us is a trailer park.
Okay. So would there be any access or entrance off of Old Crystal Springs Road to this
No.
building in the southeast corner?
No. In the southeast corner, no, the entrance would be off.
Everything would be off board?
Right.
I'm a little concerned with noise in a machine shop. I actually work in one all day long, and when blades running or pneumatic stuff, I just was a little curious about what your plan was for noise.
We're going to insulate the building and, just make sure that we keep the doors closed. And we've got the shop now, we'll just say a CNC runs about 80 decibels, which is basically the sound of a garbage disposal.
Our machines are not very large. I think when you think of machine shop, you're thinking of these gigantic machines. The parts we make some are this small. I think the largest is maybe like this. So our lathes only have, well, you're a machinist, so only have a 2-inch chuck on our lathes, so we can't put very big stuff in there. And then our Mazak, which is our largest machine, I think it's got maybe 6, like altogether 6 feet that it can move from side to side. But generally our parts are so small, we do multiple parts in that. So we would have the chuck set up in such a way that you're making 6 to 10 parts in that swing that you've got running through there. They're very small machines.
So those machines that you explained, is that not manufacturing? Or is that just assembly?
That's the manufacturing.
Okay, and that's another relationship, but you're wanting to move it here?
Right. The assembly part we do here now.
Okay.
But the manufacturing part, we would like to move here.
Most everything that comes into town, I can put in my car or the back of the pickup truck. Almost everything we ship out goes UPS or FedEx. So the parts are small. Even as assembled parts, they're small.
What's the raw material that will then come in? Can you describe that to me?
The raw material, steel, aluminum.
Like steel rods?
Steel rod, right, or flat bar, steel flat bar. Most pieces are, what, less than 2 inches? 2 inch square, 2 inch diameter?
Yeah, most of our pieces, I would say 3 inch would be the largest that we do multiple runs of. They are long, so that's why they come on flatbeds, because it's much cheaper to buy a long piece and cut it than it is to pay for them to cut it to drop it off.
Right, most pieces will be 12 to 20 feet long, and then we take it in and cut it.
I have a question then. Okay, that's what you're saying now. What about next week or 6 months from now or a year from now? I mean, that's a big issue. We're not talking about just what's going to happen in the immediate future. Immediately, we're talking about what's going to happen in the future if there is a machine shop there. And then you mentioned that you wanted to use the section under special uses for commercial, but the building that you're going to be putting in is not a dual operation. It is strictly for a machine shop. You already have your distribution. So that is not a valid reason under that zoning regulation.
One thing that we had thought possibly about doing was just expanding our building, adding on to the back of our building, and that's why I thought maybe we would move, if we could move it to the west behind our building, we would just extend our existing building.
In the original proposal,
And
which I never saw.
once the zoning has been changed, and you move on, then you still have those new zoning laws changed, and another company can come in and do whatever they want.
I specifically asked that question to the zoning board, and they said that is not the case. What I was told.
This would be a special use.
This is special use
for the owner.
for this use. So if he sells or goes out of business and another guy buys that building, and it's a different, no, if it's the exact same use, then it just continues on, from my understanding.
But the
If he,
building is still there, and if no one uses it, it's a vacant machine shop in a residential neighborhood.
give you that.
I agree, but how long has that laundromat been there falling apart at the seams?
Well, that's a past issue that I couldn't do anything about.
Well, I understand.
This I can speak for.
I understand.
I don't think we should be addressing the issue, in this to try to justify something that's against the regulation.
Well, see, when I bought that building, the zoning was C1, and that's really why I bought it, was so that, I mean, that's why I built my office there.
The meeting first started back in September. At that time, that area all was zoned Z or R2. Then during the meeting, someone come up and said, well, I think the zoning there might be incorrect. You know, we're going to have to address that. So they canceled subject, they went back, and we had a future meeting, and they said, well, that zoning map's been wrong for years, and it is commercial. And if you look on your zoning map, there's a little bitty dot there that shows commercial out of a whole area there. And I don't know how many people might have been harmed over the years buying homes in that area, looking at the zoning map and showing that all of it being R2. And they're saying now it's not. I'm not disagreeing that it was wrong. I'm just saying it was wrong for years. And now, all of a sudden, we want to do commercial, saying it's commercial, and then we're basically putting industrial. If you read the definition in industrial of like manufacturing, it fits a machine shop perfectly. Some of us others have some comments we'd like to speak on, so.
Do you have more that you want to
No,
present?
that's-
Okay, Jerry, you can go ahead then.
Thank you.
Jerry, you want to go ahead?
And he's asking you to come up and speak first.
Yeah, do you want to?
Well, we had a couple more people.
Well, I mean, is that the gist of your comments then? I mean, that's fine. I just wanted, if you're not done.
Here is a petition signed for 20-some people in this area that I presented to the zoning board. They seem to disregard it, when I presented to the zoning board. So basically, I just want to, I want to present some background. You got the petition, and from remarks, I understood you got the pictures of his facility at this time. And he does own other properties out that area now. I mean, he owns an adjoining lot to those pictures in that area, according to the zoning map. But just want to go over and present the background. You got the petition and evidence and be able to give reason why there shouldn't be a machine shop hydraulic repair at that corner. First of all, they're trying to push it through in a classification that's not valid. The classification they're saying is that, and we're talking about a new building now, we're not talking about existing structure, where it's a combined retail or wholesale and manufacturing operation, where the manufacturing portion is incidental to the use. Now we're talking about this new building, and he's saying he's going to be manufacturing on this, but they're trying to put it through this special use. And it's not more than 5%, and I agree with that, and I'm not contesting that. And here's how the zoning map now looks. And if you look down there, circle, there's a little bitty dot that shows commercial. And with his operation, we're talking about industrial though, but it's hard to see. That whole other area is single family and multi-family.
From what I understand, those zoning maps were incorrect though, because when I bought that property, everything was zoned C1, even where I have the apartments. And I think possibly when the R2 was put in there incorrectly was when I had to do some kind of zoning, doing a multi-family on the commercial lots. I'm not sure what it was, but it should be just where those apartments are should be the only R2 in that area.
And I agree, when he bought the property, that's what the zoning is commercial. When we first started this process, this has been a long drawn out process, started back in September of last year. But at that time, when he started, it was actually shown on the zoning map as R2. Then it was decided there was an error, and I'm assuming that's correct, and then it was zoned commercial. But we're asking for something industrial here in this zone, when all the people in the area have been used to being in a residential zone. I got some notes here, and I dropped them,
So Jerry, the pink area that you're outlining here on this zoning map, you're saying that is commercial?
That little bitty pink thing down it, that I've got circled there, that is a commercial.
Okay.
And that is where he is proposing to put a machine shop.
Okay.
But now, a machine shop does not fit in commercial. It's clearly defined if you looked at your zoning in industrial. And I don't think you can really try to drive a square hole, a square pin in a round hole, trying to say that the building you're going to be putting in is going to meet the criteria that it's a combination wholesale and manufacturing operation. But the new building is not a combination. If you combine it with the other building, it may be, but the new building is a machine shop. And what was really confusing with the city zoning board they seem to base all their opinion on the fact that this wholesale operation he already has there looked really, really nice. So that's when I decided, well, what is the operation now? And I did drive out and take some pictures. But they didn't take any consideration that a machine shop is completely separate operation with heavy equipment. You said you work in a machine shop, you know what all kind of things going on. This shop here, you got here, put the parts together and ship them out. And so that's what's in that zone now.
Definition of industrial property. And
Yeah.
Of course, and I'm looking at my notes and dropped here.
Well, basically, and this is straight from the zoning, for my name's Brent. This is straight from the City of Marion zoning ordinances and everything. So special use and machine shops are not even allowed in regular, the regular uses of commercial, but under special use for commercial C1 in Article 9, combined retail or wholesale and manufacturing operations where the manufacturing portion of use is incidental to the principal use and involves not more than 5 persons employed in the manufacturing activity. So what he's basically saying is the entire application for this in the first place shouldn't have even been considered because it doesn't even meet that. It's not a combined facility. It's not incidental to it and everything. So it shouldn't have even been considered in the first place, and it should have been not. What he's thinking is he's putting a building next to it that's combined. It's not. That's not what the definition according to the zoning map says. Now, for industrial use, Article 10, and there's an issue here also, is allows assembly, manufacturing, or processing of any commodity from semi-finished materials, provided explosives, flammable gas, or liquids or live animals are not involved. So that's the industrial definition, which would almost fit his, although if they're having tanks of oil and other chemicals and stuff that could be explosive or flammable on the thing, then it wouldn't even be allowed as a regular use in industrial. It would have to move up to a special use in industrial. And that's according to the Marion zoning thing taken directly from it.
so what section was that in again?
Industrial use, Article 10. I don't have all the little numbers and things like that. But
I've got them here.
assembly, manufacturing, or processing of any commodity from a semi-finished material, and it would be one of the first things I believe in what is allowed in an industrial area, provided that explosives, flammable gases, or liquids or live animals are not involved, and everything in it. And that's for industrial. So if he has flammable liquids, gases, or that type of stuff, then once again, that wouldn't even be under the regular use for industrial. And it definitely doesn't fall under the special use for commercial. So, and that's one of the things that I brought up a couple of times at the hearing for the special use permit and everything with the board, asking, okay, what does this actually fit? What actual, is this industrial? Is it commercial? Is it commercial special use? Because as I read everything, it is industrial, but they never answered that or hadn't answered it.
Thanks, sir. I got the blame. Anyone else have any comments?
I just like to ask a simple question. How many people are here tonight that do not want a machine shop at the corner of Oakville Springs Road and Boynton Street? Raise your hand, please. How many people?
That we have all heard from the owner on what he wants. What about what we want? We don't want it.
Well, that's what we're listening to
But
now.
I'm saying, you're telling us, we live there in that area.
Sir, we're trying to. We are. Don't get upset. We're just trying to step through this. Trying to sort through time, okay?
And you've got a petition there with 20 some odd signatures. And a few of the people are here, but there's a good number of those that are not here also. That signed that. And I understand the zoning board has difficult, time, trying to work everything in, benefit the city, benefit the, residents of the area.
This item is $20. Well, it's from the website. So it may not be exactly as much. I just think this is what is under and everything on it. It's combined. The manufacturing portion is incidental to. So I can
So what you're saying is when you are defining combined, you're meaning joint use, I guess, not necessarily
one
buildings.
facility. I mean, is that not what combined means?
But why one facility, if I may ask, and I'm not challenging you, I'm just asking, why would it be, or why do you say one facility? Just because it says combined?
Well, I mean, that's the way your code reads, so I'm assuming
But
that
combined
they're
could
trying
be, it doesn't
to.
say anything about buildings. Combined could be retail, wholesale, manufacturer, two separate buildings.
Well, I'm assuming that the code was written that way to keep people from doing kind of exactly that and defining what a machine shop or manufacturing facility is separately in the industrial use. So I'm assuming that it's saying for that purpose and everything, it has to meet those criteria of being combined operation where the manufacturing portion is incidental to the actual other warehousing and office and da portion of it and everything. Otherwise and everything, then the definition of what machine shop and everything falls under actually industrial and everything. And even under industrial, if you're using flammable, explosives, gases, things like that, and everything to it, it requires a special use permit even under industrial. So you're moving up step by step by step. That is what it means to me as I read it.
On the oils, it's actually hydraulic oil, which the hydraulic oil is non-flammable.
Not a flammable, you don't have any flammable materials on your.
Hydraulic oil will burn, it'll flame.
We use it to test the parts that go underground, because that's what they use underground. So the oil that we use is NGA approved because it goes to underground for months. That's the oil that we have. It's not an explosive material.
Do you use welders and things like that?
We do weld.
Okay. Does welding, does byproduct of welding create explosive gases?
I mean, you use gases to weld.
Okay.
But, I mean, again, that comes under manufacturing, what our definition of
Yeah, under industrial.
As far as the combined use, he's trying to get a permit for a machine shop to do the machine work and saying that fits under this on combined use when he's got a distribution facility there. And I think it's written this way simply because a person will say, I want to set up a machine shop distribution facility out here. So they set up a distribution facility, then they go back in and say, I've got a distribution facility, I want to add on a machine shop to it later on. And then they turn around and cite this thing, this clause here. But I think the purpose of being separated is they're two distinct things in operation, and this building here is not incidental to this being a machine shop.
I just want to let you know, a machine shop is a full-time construction zone. There's no way you can get through the day without having noise levels. I worked construction my whole life in houses. You can walk outside across the street here and air compressor kick on. So to say there's gonna be no noise levels is absolutely ridiculous on that. You know, so, look, you know, a machine shop's a machine shop. You can put lipstick all over it, and it's still gonna be a machine shop.
Can I say something? I think basically what I'm here for is, I've lived there almost 40 years. You know, I raised a family there. And now, we're putting a business in. But basically what I'm trying to say is, we're all homeowners there. We live there, we raise kids there. And now, all of a sudden, we're getting this thrown on us about a machine shop. I ain't gonna live long enough to see anything happen probably, but my kids will. And the property will depreciate. I don't care what anybody says, men out here can tell you. Our property will depreciate when that machine shop goes in.
And destroy the property values.
Yeah, it's not.
Here's
We discussed that at the zoning board meeting and they just ignored it.
That's all I'm trying to, that's what I'm here for, is because I want to keep my neighborhood. You know what I mean? It's a family neighborhood, and these kids play up down the streets, and just like any other neighborhood, like y'all's neighborhood. And I just don't want to see it turn into, eventually be an industrial park somewhere. You know what I'm saying? I just don't want it, because one thing will lead to another, and one thing will lead to another, like they're trying to explain here, that one of these days, they'll tell them what be built down there.
Yeah, it's just gonna be a big old pole barn building. It's never gonna be used for nothing but something bad. I mean, if Darryl leaves the place.
Just like that old
Never.
laundromat down there, you know. I've talked to Ken several times about when he tear that thing down, it looks crappy, you know, and he throws the color paint on it, and, oh, it's a good building, you know, but I've been in that building, it's gonna be condemned. But that's what I come here to say, that's all I wanted to say about it.
And on Jim's point, we submitted all kinds of evidence to the zoning board on the value of the property. I spoke with John Harville concerning that. And he said, John Harville has been appraisal around that. He said, absolutely, Jerry. Anything like that moves in the neighborhood, it drops the value of homes in the neighborhood. And I agree, it's not the greatest, it's most expensive neighborhood in the area. But it's our home, we don't want to lose value on it. These people over here don't want to lose value on their home.
Like you wouldn't want to lose it on yours if it's put across the street from you. I mean, simple as that. I don't believe Darryl would put it in his front yard, even though he's got a nice big front yard there where he lives at, you know, but I don't think he would.
I don't think he'd own it there.
You know, like I said, if I thought it was going to be detrimental to the neighborhood, I wouldn't put it there because
We
I've
just don't
got
want
a
it.
huge investment right there, right beside where I want to put it, so.
I know the board has to weigh a lot and a lot of different decisions, everything, you know, and they got a lot of, you know, difficult decisions. But I kind of relate this to, I think a story somebody started mentioning a while ago, where a lady in another part of town wanted to put a beauty shop on her property or in her house, and had requested a special use permit in a residential area. Some people spoke out against it, I understand, and I don't know the whole story, the whole background. I think you guys probably do a lot more than I do, but spoke out against it. And the zoning board, looking at these regulations on special use permits, basically, you know, decided that special use permits may or should not have a detrimental impact on nearby uses. And I understand for that particular reason, and people complaining of not wanting her, you did not allow her a special permit to put a beauty shop in order to support her and her kids. And I really, this is basically, you know, you denied her the zoning. And we've got 20 some odd people there, 10 or 12 here, we got 30, 40 people probably speaking against this. And so that's kind of the same situation. It will affect the area. You use the zoning board laws then to deny her a permit, and I don't see how you can treat a businessman and a corporation any different under the zoning laws than the way you treated this lady. And I'm not saying you treated her bad, you just had to go by what you have in the zoning laws.
Kent McWilliams. I live just down the corner from Boynton Street, about 3 or 4 houses. Wanted to comment about to Daryl about the value of his rental property and the effect of the shed on that. I have rental property too, or I still have. People that live in rental property don't make an investment there. They live there and they move on somewhere else. The people that invest in those houses, not so much for myself, but for a lot of people in that neighborhood, that's their biggest investment. And some of them plan on selling that house someday to help with their retirement. And I would say probably you can look at it, 85% of the people in this country, if they own a home, it's going to be a big impact on their retirement, whether they can sell that house or not. So the rental property argument, I mean, it's valid in one way, but not really as far as it affects the net worth of those homeowners. And I've known Daryl for quite a while. I like Daryl, but I have to disagree with him on this, and it's in my neighborhood too. So that's where I stand on this. So thank you.
Okay. If you guys don't mind, not that somebody else can. Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Before, someone said something about the little pickup trucks would be producing this all over the place. Well, was this any good that you people sent from the, they said our other concerns around the industrial machine shop include increased traffic from large trucks and tractors, trailers, that's the semis, increased noise pollution, and which we know political, hazardous emissions and air quality. And I want to say that's one of the busiest corners in Marion, because we have all these big homes out Creel Springs Road by the golf course and all that, and it's full of activity. And we've got lots of little school children here. We have lots of school buses, special needs children's and buses, and federal express trucks 3 times a day. If they don't have a good schedule, they go out as soon as you call for something. And UPS, it gets congested. They're very congested and busy. It just can't handle any more of that type of activity. That one won't fit in there at all. There's not enough room there. You need more room. It's not the right environment setting for what we have there. And then our homes will all go down too in value, you know. That's about all I have to say, but you people won't do that. Oh, that's not mine.
Okay. If you don't mind, let us among the council discuss this. You guys can ask questions and whatever, or discuss amongst yourselves.
Let them discuss it.
I have to agree with what Jerry Beasley was saying. A few weeks back, we denied the lady over on Suzanne Drive the special permit to put in a beauty shop. Probably the biggest driving factor on that for me was that the neighbors didn't want it. We have a situation here where we've got 20, 30 people in the neighborhood that don't want it. We allowed the pole barn and Robin's Nest to expand, but when we sent notices out, nobody cared. You know, the neighbors were fine with it. These decisions are hard to make, but I can put myself in their shoes. I mean, I know you. I hope your business does well, but I think there's too many other areas that we could probably get you in a location here in Marion that would, this is just my opinion, that would be in an area that it would be suitable instead of in an area where we've got 25 or 30 people here that definitely don't want it in their area, and I have to personally go along with that.
I have a question on that denial we did. Was that, Suzanne, residential or commercial?
I believe that was a residential area, and she was wanting, I guess, a special permit to have a commercial business,
Right.
which was a difference. If it's got
Yeah,
a commercial
there's a lot of
business,
mitigating factors on that one.
Right. Yeah.
One, it was a portable building that she was putting into a residential yard. That's a completely different dynamic than this. In my opinion, our code is far short in that regard, because I know that not to have to relitigate that issue again, but our code wouldn't even allow her to have that in her house, to cut somebody's hair, which I think is patently unfair. And, but that situation was complicated further because she had applied, if you recall, for a pool house for that building to be. And then later tried to amend it so that she could have a business out of there, and that's where putting a toilet and all of that stuff in there. So, but anyway, I see those as two totally different things, but that doesn't speak to this specifically. But point taken is that we had to interpret the code as best as we could in that scenario.
I'm a little confused on what the board approved, the area where the
That's why
laundromat is.
I had asked Tim to go down and get the actual application, and it is on parcels 12, 13, and 14. It appears ending in 12, 13, 14. So that's an issue that if we do act on this, technically we have to act, I think, is what Wendy said, on what was applied for, not, although I have to tell you,
I guess my question, are we still wanting to go ahead and approve what's the zoning board did because you're going to store stuff in the laundromat, or was that off the table now?
Well, the laundromat was really not part, the laundromat was just going to stay as it is for now. The application was actually, where I want to build the building was on the two southern lots on that corner.
so as far as the confusion goes, I think we have to act on this specific request on these parcels.
On the corner, southeast corner.
Yeah.
But if he's making a decision now to possibly relocate,
Well, honestly, if that is the case, and I'm going to get scrutinized and probably yelled at for this by somebody's going to find fault with it, but that's stupid. For us to send it back to the zoning board, go through this process, as Jerry said, this has lasted since September because of this issue or that issue and COVID stuff, and then it ends up coming right back to us. If we know that's going to be the issue, I think that but maybe we can't do that. I don't know. I'd leave that up to Wendy.
Well, part of the issue that I wanted to address early, because we knew this was going to be contentious, is I spoke to every one of the zoning board members because it was not a unanimous decision, number one. Usually when it comes unanimous, we don't have this discussion because this does not happen. But, so I wanted to know why there was dissent. There's only one, but one dissenter in that. And I likened it to this. I said, it's kind of like when your kids come to you and you go to dad and he says no, or he says yes, and the kid doesn't like that decision, you go to the other parent to try and get them to sway and influence the other one. So my point is, we have a zoning board to do this exact thing. Kind of like we had when we had the Airbnb issue going on. We had Airbnb people coming every meeting, and it was one off, one off, one off, one off. So we amended our codes to kind of cover ourselves. There's a lot of things here that I find that, was this zoned correctly at one point? Was it not? Looking on the surface, if it's commercial, then this fits, to me, the commercial thing. Maybe it doesn't, the industrial, or how the code is written here, but it's better than if it was residential. If this was a residential area, then this goes right in the face of what our code says, but it's commercial, so it's kind of gray, So with all of those different facets, and it's gotta go back anyway, and I know what you're saying. Do we wanna do that and send it back? But, you know, I'm assuming all this was discussed with the zoning board at that time? All the different, how it was zoned back in the day when Darrell bought it, when it was done, what's being done there, and all that. So
I take it from the group that's opposed, you're opposed, period, simply because it doesn't belong in the neighborhood. Even a compromise, if you will, if that's the right word, to put it back behind the existing building is still a no for
It's
you
still
guys.
in the neighborhood.
I understand, but it is tucked away.
Well,
That would help, that would help. I'm not saying I'm for it or against it, I'm just asking the question.
I think
Your-
one of the things
your
you
answer
have to
is still no.
consider
Is
is
that correct?
that I'm in real estate also. Machine shops and machine shops and machine shop in a neighborhood, no matter if it's tucked away a little bit, kind of hidden, has little fences around portions of it to hide oil drums and trash and different things like that. A machine shop's a machine shop's a machine shop. So if, let's just say you live in an area where you have a nice little subdivision and stuff, but let's say that the street across from you zoned is agricultural or something like that and everything. And somebody wanted to put something in there that would decrease the value of your home, which could very easily happen unless, you know, someone denied it and stuff for you and everything. It's still going to decrease the value of your home. When
We'll
you,
take that beauty shop over there, really, if you want to put it over there.
but anyway, it's a machine shop's a machine shop's a machine shop, whether you try to dress it up or anything like that. I don't have anything against Mr. Ross. He's trying to do business. But there are lots and lots of considerations to make. You say that the special use permit is just for him, just for this purpose. I think it's 8 years or something like that, and then they can reapply or whatever and everything on. But the only reason that and I'm assuming that at some point, that little commercial thing right there in the middle of all the other and everything had to be somebody applying to do that. Maybe it was when he put that other building there or something and everything, and nobody realized it at the time and everything that got zoned commercial and stuff.
Not to interrupt, do you know when the building you're in was built by chance? Because I may have a theoretical answer on that.
Probably 2011.
That late?
2011, probably.
Okay.
But I think that when I bought that property from Ken Marquardt, he said that he bought the property in the 70s, and it was on C1 in the 70s.
Well,
It's C1 from that
Okay.
brick building all the way down.
it was probably, it's odd to me that it was zone C1 to begin with, just looking at it, as you pointed out.
Very odd, you know, I mean.
But it is fact. That I'm certain. Okay. I think probably that's why I asked this question, which doesn't sound like that's my answer, but I know that Scrubby Doo was there a long time prior to that.
Yeah.
It's probably because when, I believe it was October of '87 when this zoning ordinance was passed. And my guess is that because it was de facto commercial at that time, that's why that block.
Yeah.
But I don't know that.
They basically, and I think you're right, Mayor, they basically carved that section out because it was already commercial. And that's probably why it's commercial today.
I don't know,
Yeah, it would be impossible probably.
I want you to think about something. I'm gonna give you a scenario here. Marion is changing. We know that. And what typically, I don't want everybody to get comfortable with where things are at today, because in a very short amount of time, that could change. And here's why I'm saying that. If you remember when the mall went in, what did that used to be? A great big corn farm. Everybody thought, a mall? Look at the values now at that land out there. They're $500,000 an acre. My point is this. Your property is residential today and probably for a while. But be prepared, and I know you won't turn this down, if the commercial comes in and says, you know what, this would be a great little commercial pocket, and instead of paying $30,000 an acre, we're going to pay $300,000 an acre. That change, I guarantee none of you would say, no, we want this still to be residential. My point is, keep an open mind with the changes that are out there. Because for us to grow, we have to change.
I agree, I understand what you're saying. I'm in the real estate business and I see it happen. But right now, we're dealing with residents here and now.
Absolutely.
That want to live in their home.
Absolutely.
Want to keep up value, and you can't throw in a future possibility, theoretical thing, and try to make it fit in this scenario.
Well, my parents has worked their hind ends off their whole life to get what little bit they got. James Webb's worked his butt off in his little bitty house over there. We got the city of Clarksville just to the south of my parents for 50-some years. You know, to destroy their property values over one man is ridiculous. He can go anywhere in the area.
You guys, you've totally missed my point.
No,
My point is, I understand what you're saying. I completely agree with you. If it was my neighborhood, I wouldn't want it either. But guess what, guys? Things change.
Well, then vote with your conscience if you wouldn't want it in your neighborhood.
Well, then vote to put it in your front yard?
All right, hold on. Listen, we can have an adult conversation without everybody getting ramped up, okay? Can I speak, please?
Yes.
We can have an adult conversation without everybody getting amped up. I don't even know where we stand with this, so don't presume anything.
Yes.
Just because somebody's asking a question doesn't mean it's meant to be argumentative.
Yes.
Okay?
Thank you.
Is that fair enough?
Do we not have industrial parks?
We have some industrial zones. I don't know, the only industrial park has land, I guess, is Butler Industrial Park out west of town.
I want to present what I'm seeing and my concern that I'm seeing. And I'm extremely, extremely disappointed in what I'm seeing. And it appears to be that all these people that live in this neighborhood and all these people on a petition and all these people are here, I mean, you're just pushing them aside. Say, I don't care what they say. Let's look for a way to get this through. Let's take it back. And that is not a position that the mayor and city council should take toward their residents. And I'm not saying it's so. I'm just saying from the appearance of the discussion, that's what it appears to me.
We have to analyze both sides of the coin up until the very end. And your presumptions probably, I think you're going to be surprised. But my point in asking the questions that I ask is so I can see both sides of the coin. And I will do that until the very end. Because I want to do what's best for Marion.
I don't think anybody does it. As a matter of fact, quite honestly, and everything, you know, the council and Mayor Absher have done a good job at trying to revitalize Marion. Take areas that are going downhill and making them better, whether it be over in the Midway Corridor, whether it be downtown, whether it be in different areas and stuff like that. That's the same thing we want, really. We want you to look at it and say, you know, this is just not going to make this neighborhood better. It's going to bring it down even more and everything on it. And the problem there being is the future, and who knows, it could all be commercial one day and it could be worth lots and lots of money because Marion's all moved that way for industry and things like that. It's not right now, but I mean, it could happen and everything to it. But, you know, he's in business to succeed, quite obviously. And he's either going to fail or he's going to succeed. If he fails, then it's either an empty vacant building left there to rot like the Scrubby-Doo did at the time that it was there, or he's going to sell it to someone else who already basically has it as a special use industry. Now at that time, he wouldn't be able to necessarily use it as that, but then he could take it to the city council. And more than likely, since it was already used like that previously, they're probably going to allow it and everything. And then who knows what's going to get in there. And if they expand and want more of the commercial property that's back in there, then that's going to continue and everything to it and everything, you know. And maybe if it gets big enough, then we'll have a fade and everything sitting there. And everything, an old abandoned building that's dilapidated, and the soccer fields and the nice houses and everything over there face that area and stuff and everything on it. And everything. You know, if he does good, even though I believe that it does not fit for commercial, it has to be industrial at the least, and if he's having gases or flammable liquids or explosives, it has to be in special use industrial and everything, If he succeeds, then he has to expand. Now, the thing says, even if you're saying that that's not wrong, that fits commercial and everything, he can only have up to 5 employees. So he really can't expand in the same building that he's doing. He has to continue to expand elsewhere and everything, and grow it and everything. He does mining parks. Wonderful. This is a coal mining area. No one has any problem with that. But we all know that it's also a very volatile type of business and everything. Who knows what's going to happen at any particular time with the mining situation and stuff. So then he either has to adapt and start manufacturing different parts, he has to change to something else. You know, there's all kinds of things that can happen in the future. But anyway, I just wanted you to, in effect, I know that you guys are really working hard at revitalizing Marion and trying to get everything, you know, get it to be a nice little city. We want our neighborhood to be a nice little neighborhood.
And I apologize for getting a little emotional, but I've lived there 50 some odd years. Cedar Park, south of me, has lived there over 50 years. Jim there has lived there, and it's our home, and we get emotional. And a lot of people in the neighborhood down here. So I apologize for getting emotional, and it should be on scripted business. But that's what happens when you feel like somebody's imposing over on your space and changing your neighborhood.
Okay.
Before we,
Somebody has one.
This is my input on it. I run vineyard management of the trailer court right there next to the property. You guys are talking about Marion Grove. I'm all for it, because I think we're growing commercial. It's all about changing around, like you said. I think it's welcoming, and we grow it, and we let it happen. I mean, we're growing that way. We're growing the other way, but we're not going that way at all. Like you said, eventually all it can become commercial, and we can go further that way. So that's what I said. Me and Daryl's talked time and time again. We own a multi-billion-dollar company. We don't care that it's building right beside us. I mean, we've got these all over the place, so we're all for it. I mean,
Do you manage a trailer court?
Will you manage or own it?
Manage it.
You manage it, okay. I was not clear.
I would just like to add to you guys, there's a fine line between the government regulating too much or not enough. We've implemented zoning rules for a reason. Granted, at some point, the whole city of Marion, maybe Six Flags may want to come in and buy the whole city and turn it into an amusement park, I don't know. But we do have zoning rules in place to protect people's investments. And I think we're talking commercial and we're talking about industrial. And granted, there's a commercial building there, his office that he currently has, but we're talking about taking it to another step. We've got people that live in the area who don't want that, and I don't see how we can not listen to what they have to say. Granted, 20, 30 years from now, maybe that will all be industrial, commercial area, but presently it's residential area. And I just don't see how we can not listen to their desire. If we're not going to listen to 25 or 30 people of the residents that live there and them not wanting this, then we just need to throw the code book out, because
we might as well throw the zoning board out. I mean, I'm not saying I'm for or against either side here. I'm just looking at it just like we did some of the other things we do. If we're gonna override the zoning board, and I'm not saying they're correct or incorrect, that puts us in a position of they don't matter.
well, I think whenever you get a zoning board go that disregards 25 or 30 residents that are opposed to changing what they currently live in and what they have, and I don't blame them for wanting to come.
And that was my question. I wanted to make sure, to your point, that every bit you're telling us tonight, they had the chance to hear, digest, contemplate, and make their decision, which they then brought to us. I mean, we're really here, kind of when Mike and I were on the school board back in the day, this happened a lot with teacher hires, with coaching hires, things like that. And we would rely on the interview staff to interview all those candidates and then brought to the school board with their recommendation. If we were to constantly, if you find my point, override their recommendations over and over, they'd all go, why am I doing this? And that was my point to the guys that I talked to and the ladies on the zoning board. Is I said, you know, our job here, in my opinion, isn't to analyze too much of what they bring to us, unless it's in a tie, you know, which I think there's 5 members from our saying so it should never be a tie. But if it's 3-2, obviously that's a very contentious subject, and they struggle with that decision to bring it.
So the zoning board just changes the rules whenever they want to suit the needs of the city, not the resident.
I don't know that
Yes,
for a fact.
that's what it seems like.
I kind of look like us as the Supreme Court, and whenever a court rules a certain way, according to the way they see it, you know, there's an avenue for those who think that's not right to come to the ultimate court.
I don't disagree with that.
To decide that. And we don't override, you know, every zoning rule that, you know, that they make.
Yeah.
In fact, we've already approved 2 tonight.
Right. But the circumstances are different. The people that live in the area don't want it.
Yeah.
You know.
I can't help but think when this was on commercial, that could have been before a lot of houses were built out there. Or if you talk about change, I think maybe in time it has changed more residential than maybe what it was conceived as commercial back 40 years ago, 50 years ago, whatever it was.
Or it could have been Scooby-Doo was put in, and then months later it was like, oh man, that's not a commercial area, so it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that, but
I think that's what happened. I mean, that, no offense to anybody, but typically that's the way.
We often wonder how it came to be out there anyway, that laundromat.
Good question.
Well, the GTE building's out there too, so.
Right. So GTE had to be commercial at some
But that's
point.
just another example of an abandoned
That's
building.
all about family now. GTE building. I mean, I can't answer that.
I'm just saying, I don't look at Daryl's application for this wrongly because it is zone commercial. If this was residential, then I'd say he has a larger hill to climb here, you know. And again, I'm not saying right or wrong, I'm just saying that I don't fault him for applying in a commercial zone.
But understand why Darrell says he wants to build that location for his convenience. That's his statement at the zoning board, for his convenience.
Well, Jeremy, it's his property. It's his property.
Well, it was just recently. He's been trying to get this approved for quite a while on a verbal type of a contract evidently, but he did just purchase the property.
He just purchased it probably within the last month or so.
Well, regardless of when he purchased it, and to Jerry's point, I'm going to say my piece now. To your point about it's what it seems like to you is that we're pushing for one thing for the other. You guys are mad and you're presuming that we're presuming and pushing something. You're angry and that's why you're presuming we feel a certain way. I'll be honest with you, at this 5 seconds, I don't even know how I feel about it. So give us a break,
And I agree.
okay?
I agree with that.
You memorize it. Memorize it. And it's 35 years, okay, it's 35 years old and there's spaces in it, literally and figuratively, on what we should and shouldn't do. So I'm gonna say some things that's probably gonna make everybody in the room mad, everybody. So just, and let me finish. Fair enough? Because if you presume, you're gonna be wrong. And I'll start where I ended. To your point about what we're presuming, what we're trying to do is weigh several factors, in my opinion. I'm not speaking for you, at least this is how I feel. And by the way, we're not the final arbiter, Supreme Court of this. This can be challenged judicially, literally. I believe that property owner could take it to the circuit court if they disagree with the city council's opinion, which is all the more reason why we need to try to get it right and make sure we're doing it legally. To me, the code is muddy at best, the way that it reads. You guys are hinging upon the term of an industrial use, which I find non-compelling. I find it non-compelling for the most part because I grew up the first 16 years of my life just down the street where Fabic was, P&S Grain was, my grandpa's junkyard behind the car dealership, which I'm very well familiar with, which is now a trucking company on that railroad and such. If anything, that's industrial. Okay? And I'm very familiar with it. That being said, I was also born on Anderson Drive, just down the other street, so I understand where you're coming from. One of the most common things that we hear, and I'm just going to say this because it always comes up, I heard it tonight from somebody, would you want that in your backyard? It's not your backyard, it's his property. And what we have to weigh is competing circumstances, which is what is good for growth, what's good for jobs, what's good for economic development. Frankly, on a corner that has not seen a lot of economic development, I'm disappointed that you're not tearing down that Scrubby-Doo building, for example. Although I'm glad whoever recited it did. It's been an eyesore for a long time. But to me, this hinge upon whether you're applying a industrial term to it or not, I'm not sure that's a great argument because I don't know that it's provable one way or the other. I don't know that I can prove or you can disprove whether it's 80 decibels or less and whether that's a garbage disposal or not. If it is a garbage disposal, I'm pretty sure no one that's running their garbage disposal is disturbing their neighbors at this point, if that's the case. You've got the argument where you're saying, well, yeah, that's what it is now, but what about in the future? Well, my gosh, if we got to make a decision about what some building might be 20 years from now, I will never do anything. All that being said, to me, and Daryl and Jerry, you're both friends of mine, so I'm going to make somebody mad. I don't think it fits. I just don't think it fits. Because I don't think it fits the intent of what that code said. And boy, is that a hard one to try to figure out what some council 35 years ago intended with that. It seems to me with context, my kids always say, use your context clues. Like somebody must have taught them that in school. It seems to me that this little square was carved out, kind of, if you use the term loosely, but they grandfathered whatever was existing when that zoning ordinance went into effect. But I don't think they intended for light manufacturing there. And I think that's what you're describing, and I'll be honest with you, what it hinges on for me is you're talking about, I think I understand the hydraulic fluid. I'm not sure whether it's flammable or not. Anything is when put to enough heat, and pigs can fly, by the way. It just requires a lot of velocity. But what I'm picturing is kind of like the waste oil containers that are burned and stuff like that outside a facility. And I'm not sure that that fits in a residential or a commercial neighborhood, frankly. So that's my opinion on it. Like I said, but what's being applied for right now, I would reconsider my opinion if that wasn't an issue. I don't know how that would be mitigated. If you did decide to is that your opinion, Wendy? Is that this application being for specific pins over here that it would need to be reapplied for?
Yes. You guys have an administrative process in place, and it would have to go.
Okay, well, that really stinks. So it be.
The question I have, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to make sure that we're uniform as much as we can be with that, in the fact that one of the contentions here is that there's flammable material there. Are we sure that this isn't occurring in 15 other parts of the city?
I promise you we're not.
Because I can think of 6 or 7 commercial properties right now sitting right next door to residential houses that would not fit exactly what you're saying. They have flammable materials there. I can picture 10 like that.
But those are already there, and this is new.
I know, but the thing is still applied to both, whether it's there or not. I mean, we can talk grandfather, I guess, but it still doesn't override the fact that the code says one thing, and if it does, then the person who has that today is in violation of the code. Then something should be done about that. If that's indeed what we say this code stands for, then they're all in violation, all those places. I'm just trying to say, we got to make sure that this doesn't mushroom into this giant, because this is one neighborhood today, and if we uphold this or not uphold this, can this then lead to 10 other neighborhoods now going, hey, they said that they can't have industrial stuff here. Well, I live next door to a place that has gasoline tanks right next door. Now what? I'm thinking back years ago, what about Pennzoil that was right there on the tracks? You had homes all the way around it. That man, they're not there anymore, but still, that type of situation has occurred in multiple parts of the city. So I just want to make sure that we are, you know.
My last point that I was going to make, that I feel, no, it's okay, that I want to make, is that to me, and this is going to disagree so squarely with the statement that you made about the zoning board, and I just want to make this point. The bar, to me, should be very, very high for us to overturn a zoning board recommendation when there's been a fair hearing, they've said all their piece, and so forth. These people they do that for free. They don't have any stake in the game, or aren't supposed to. I just vociferously disagree with your statement is that somehow that's a stacked deck or whatever. That's in place. I think that's what the city council put that in place whenever, probably when the zoning ordinance went in. That's 35 years ago, and there's been countless people, I'm sure, on that board, but they're intended to be lay people that look at the code and do the best that they can to interpret it. This is a situation that, as John pointed out, it was not a unanimous vote and was somewhat contentious, and I think even in Jerry's letter said that, there was one board member argued pretty strongly on your argument, basically. So, but anyway, not to argue with you, but to defend them to some extent, I just disagree with you. I think that it's intended to be independent, and I believe it is. So, but anyway, we need to reach some sort of conclusion on this. Unfortunately, fortunately, depending on how you look at it, if you choose to reapply for that to be north of your property on that one pin that I guess ends in 002, that would be a modification of your whatever, and I guess we go through this whole process again. But I think we need to come to a conclusion of some sort and move on. We got other business to take care of tonight. Somebody needs to make a motion of some sort. So
I want to say one last thing. On the vote to affirm or overturn this is predicated upon the fact of Mr. Ross wanting to move or suggesting he moves his building. So that is going to affect.
The application is for it to be
right there.
Here. That's what the zoning board has approved, is the 3 lots, which I presume is actually only 13 and 14 if you're leaving Scrubby-Doo building where it was at. So, but that's the way, you've got the copy of the application. If you see the attachments, specifically talk about 12, 13, and 14, which is why I asked Tim to go get the application itself.
Okay.
I've got one more thing to say, if I may. First of all, Mr. Ross, I apologize for that silly pink square on our zoning map. And I apologize to you guys because of that silly pink square being there. But it is what it is. We have to deal with it as it is today, and I'm sure, without a shadow of a doubt, that's what the zoning board considered. They said, hey, this is a commercial piece of property. Why shouldn't it be there? It's going to create jobs. It's going to be good for what we think let me finish. It's going to be good for Marion overall, okay? That was their thinking. I don't fault them at all for that. As Mike said, they do this free. We expect them to get it right. We don't know that they're right or wrong. We have to make our own opinions, and that's kind of what we're here for tonight. I'm sorry to both of you that we're here and talking about this thing. I think we need to do some work on our map and our definitions to clear that muddy water up that we speak of. But that's probably another day. That's all I've got.
I would make a motion that we would overrule the zoning board's approval of a special use permit to build a hydraulic repair / machine shop at 700 Oak Hill Springs Road, pin number 07-20-152-012, 07-20-152-013, and 07-20-152-014.
I'll second.
Okay, so for clarity, since we beat this horse to death. Zoning board approved the special use permit. Your motion and your second is to overrule the approval, which is in essence denying it.
Denied it, correct.
Okay. All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton,
Yay to overrule?
Commissioner Barwick,
Yay?
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Steckland,
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Now, did you presume?
And that's why I hope this goes, if you're reapplying for this for the other property, that this is decided more or less in the zoning board's court where it belongs.
Well, it'll ultimately, it's still.
It may come back
The
here.
way it will come back.
But I mean, we had to vote this no if he's going to leave it there, because this is for the different property, so.
Okay. All right, I'm going to pause for a second and give all those that have sat through all of this hour of discussion plus an opportunity to go home and eat dinner while we tear into some Girl Scout cookies.
Folks, this right here, this discussion is what is going to make Marion head and shoulders above everybody else. This discussion is healthy for the city, and I would encourage anybody else that wants to discuss this the way this was discussed tonight to please do that.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's okay, I just... What's your name, sir? Oh, okay. I can tell by your shirt now. How are you? We're gonna, that culvert that you're talking about, I went out there. Cars been flipping. The culvert comes what we're gonna do. You're on there very last. Concrete pipe. It actually didn't damage the Okay, we're going to move on because of the hour. Item 7A, we're applying for a grant with DRA, Delta Regional Authority, through their federal program cycle, and we just have to pass a resolution to be able to do that under 7A. So entertain a motion to do so, please.
I make a motion, we adopt resolution 2022-10, applying for an award with the Delta Regional Authority for the fiscal year 2021 federal award program cycle.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton,
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick,
Yay?
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Steckland,
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Item 7B is adding territory to the Williams County Enterprise Zone. The officials from the county already met and approved this with each city council, of the 5 city councils in, I think 5. Got that right?
I'd make a, oh, I'm sorry, were you done?
No, but that's okay. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think there's 5 city councils plus the county board chairman have to approve 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 city councils and village councils, I guess. Anyway, this is for a hotel that's being proposed on Morgan Avenue. Hill Avenue, I'm sorry.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 3787, adding territory to the Williamson County Enterprise Zone.
I would second that.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton,
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick,
Yay?
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Steckland,
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Item 8A, Commissioner Barwick.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommendation of myself and Chief Fitz to hire Brad Dillard as a school security officer at the agreed upon pay rate between Marion Unit 2 School District and the City of Marion. Mr. Dillard will start Friday, March 18th, 2022.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton?
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick?
Yay.
Commissioner Webb?
Yay.
Commissioner Steckland?
Yay.
Mayor Absher?
Yay. Item 9A, Brent, you want to talk to us? I know it's in our packet, and it was pretty well explained.
Yeah.
For the public, can we explain this, please?
Sure. It's, what this boils down to is we've got a couple of projects, one water and one sewer. The new elevated storage tank is ongoing. The bids for that project came in significantly higher than we originally estimated and borrowed money for. So we're going to need an additional $1 million for that project. And the sanitary sewer project is one that's getting ready to bid, and the estimates on that have inflated just with everything going on and with pipe and things like that. So we're going to need additional money for that. What we need to do is get our bond counsel working on this to go from the 10-year loans that we currently have to lengthen those terms out to 20. It's actually going to be something less than 20 years, but in that range to be able to service that debt with our current debt service income.
So what you're asking for
Yeah.
is just the approval to start
Just to
that
get
process.
we'll revisit this once we get the final wind-up. We have all the numbers in place, but this is just to get Jeff Schupel, our bond counsel, started on working through the numbers and getting everything in place.
Okay.
Yeah. I would make a motion to approve the refinancing debt for water and sewer projects as presented.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton?
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick?
Yay.
Commissioner Webb?
Yay.
Commissioner Steckland?
Yay.
Mayor Absher?
Yay. Similarly, Brent, 9B in our packet, I think we did a good job explaining this, but in case anybody has any questions, you have not identified a vehicle or
No, the only thing we've
right?
done is I've had the guys do a little bit of research and look and see about what we're going to expect on these two pieces of equipment that we sorely need. We're getting into paying a lot of rent for some things that we need to have our own equipment. Purchasing new didn't seem reasonable. When we looked at auctions and things like that, the dollar amounts I have here will fit the need that we have. So we're asking to kind of pre-approve this, and when we can revisit these once we secure the purchase and let everybody know what's going on. But it's a little awkward for the city to buy something that's used from an auction. It needs to be as soon as it comes up. Once we find something on an auction or somewhere for sale, we need to be able to purchase that. It's going to save money over new, significant amount, probably about half the cost of new. So we're asking to have that flexibility to purchase that when we come across a piece of equipment that meets our needs.
And these are budgeted items.
These are budgeted for fiscal year 2023. Those are in the budget, yes.
And I'd like to go ahead and make that motion if there's no discussion. For approving the purchase of a used service truck for an amount not to exceed $75,000 and a used diesel pump for an amount not to exceed $15,000, which are budget items for fiscal year 23.
I'll second.
Okay, now be clear, is this, if they find one, and can we go ahead and execute that then? Or
I would ask for that, yes.
That's on, just normally we purchase, order a truck or a car or whatever, and we.
Yeah. Well, I think
So that's
here,
not gonna be the case in
on an
this
auction, you
circumstance,
gotta,
right?
if it's like anything else, you
Yeah,
gotta
there's
get
not-
it the day it comes on.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's okay if I sign for that when that comes
Sure.
through, right? I know.
Just sign for it.
Okay,
It's like room service.
you guys all heard that, right? Okay. First and a second, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton?
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick?
Yay.
Commissioner Webb?
Yeah.
Commissioner Steckland?
Yay.
Mayor Absher?
Yay. Item 9C.
9C is a similar thing. These are budgeted items for fiscal year 2023, but they're kind of left over from this year. We didn't make the purchase. We're finding long lead times on these blowers that we use for our aeration system at the wastewater plant. So I've got a quote there from Arizon, what the unit price is for each blower. For two of them, it's $25,382. I'd like to go ahead and get those ordered. They probably won't show up until the next fiscal year for the invoicing on this one, but we need to get those in place so we can do our swap outs on the units we have in place right now.
So this one, we won't be required to pay these till we get them, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay. So this is different.
Yeah, we'll order these new, and when they come in, they'll invoice us on the two blowers, and we can pay for them then.
Okay. I'll make an motion to approve the purchase of two new air and blowers at a cost of $25,382.58, a budgeted item for fiscal year 2023.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton?
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick?
Yay.
Commissioner Webb?
Yay.
Commissioner Stefan?
Yay.
Mayor Absher?
Yay. Item 10A, I had planned on discussing a full component of some proposed spending of the American Rescue Plan Allocation, or Act, which is also known as ARPA, at the request of a commissioner who wanted to discuss a couple of different proposals. I'm going to table that with the exception of that part of that proposal had a carve out for public 501c3s to be able to be granted some of this money, and we had sort of got a process to propose on how that would work, and I do not want to delay on that, so I'd like Cody to outline that. It's all in your packet, but we'll just walk through it and see what you guys think.
Okay, so there's three separate documents that start on page 58 in your packet. The first is titled the Grant Request for Proposals. This is the basic rules section that I developed. I looked into some best practices at various communities our size to kind of look and see what they were doing. So I think the proposal that you'll eventually be presented with will be to allocate $200,000 to this program. We will ask nonprofits, existing nonprofits, to submit a proposal in one of two buckets. And the mayor kind of outlined this, I think, at last meeting, talking about unrestricted requests and then restricted requests. Unrestricted would be simple things like payroll, utilities, just their normal everyday costs that might have fallen behind because of the pandemic. And then the restricted request would be some more specific, if you want to think of it as a new program that a group could implement to affect largely our community in some way or the other, whatever their mission is. And so there's a couple of different buckets there as well of different things. Again, these rules are all based on the Treasury's final rule, which dictates how municipalities and recipients of these ARPA funds are to spend them. And so we're trying to stay true to that as we go through this process. So continuing through that, I've established a rough timeline. Of course, we're announcing this process tonight. Applications could open as soon as tomorrow unless you have changes that need to be made to these documents. I personally will provide technical assistance as we move through this, and then I think we could set a due date that could either be a hard or a soft due date out until April 30th. We could even go out a little further if we need to, and then announce awards this summer. So that $200,000 pot that we're talking about using for this program, nonprofits would be able to apply for up to $20,000. So this isn't just $1,000 necessarily to keep the lights on, but this is real money that could be used to hire staff to implement a new program, purchase materials to implement a new program. We really want to see some unique proposals that can really help our community and affect our community as we continue to move past, hopefully for good now, the pandemic. So, and that's not to disqualify any entity that might need these funds to get back on their feet, because again, that's the intended use of this. So, beyond that, the mayor also mentioned the establishment of a committee to help grade these, which brings me to, I'm going to skip over the second document in here, which is just the application document. Nothing real earth-shattering there. It's just basic information. We need to know that they're registered in Illinois. We need to know that they are registered with the IRS as a 501c3. Some basic information there. a budget of what these funds would be used for, of course, what their request is. And then this committee that the mayor mentioned at our last meeting would be formed. And I've asked 2 other individuals, and then 1 council member has already somewhat volunteered. If there were no other volunteers from the council, thank you, Commissioner Barwick, for that. And so the...
We need another one though, right?
Yeah.
Which one are you?
No eye contact. Did you notice that? No, nobody made eye contact. I was worried too. Oh, okay. Yeah.
We need another volunteer.
You want to know?
We'll play rock, paper, scissors later. It's okay. And so the scoring rubric is intended to be specific to obviously the grader. So the grader, whoever is going to sit on this board, and just so you know, I asked Karen Mullins at the chamber to be an evaluator. And I also asked a retired CPA who's currently president of the Rotary Club Wednesday to also be a grader, if you will, of these proposals. And we've even discussed throwing out the name of the organization, so it's much more fair in that sense. So these graders don't necessarily know who they're grading. If there's any concerns, obviously we want to be completely fair, completely transparent. And so we would ask the graders to maybe blindly grade each of these proposals as are presented by these nonprofits, grade them according to this rubric, assign them a score, and then announce awards based on those. Obviously, we would make these rubrics available to the public, anyone that wanted to see them. And obviously, we would spend until we reach that $200,000 plateau that will be presented along with the other ARPA allocations, either tonight for this portion or at a future meeting.
When you, on the graders blindly, I think was what you...
Yeah.
How would we do that? You're saying they would not know what organization is making a specific application, but isn't that going to be kind of...
Well, and it may be. I'm trying to avoid, as wholesome as we're trying to be with this, there's always going to be a scenario where somebody said, well, so-and-so got a grade because they know so-and-so. And that's what we want to try and avoid here. It's very hard to find. Honestly, if we were going to get evaluators, we should probably look at another community and ask, I don't know, the mayor of Heron to Steve Fertini to be a grader, because maybe they don't have any. But, you know, this is a fund that we're establishing for Marion 501c3s, folks that will use these monies to either, again, get their own 501c3 back on their feet, or to maybe start a new program within their apparatus. And so trying to do that as fair as possible is what we're trying to ensure here, because inevitably, no matter what we do, there's always a question of whether we're doing it fairly, and that's obviously every intention with this money. We want to do the most good we can with this money, and so whether that's something that you guys want to see that we do it blindly, or maybe we need to reevaluate who's on this board or this panel. But again, we want to try and be as fair as possible, and I honestly don't know how to do that because, like you said, anyone that's reading a narrative is eventually going to figure out, well, that's this organization or that's organization. So I get that.
Yeah. For me, it would be hard to grade it without knowing who it was, but that's just a way. So in theory, what you're saying is we white out the names and then just have application number 1, and then we turn in a grade sheet number 1. Right. And if there's 4 evaluators, graders, as you said, you just get 4 of these sheets and simply add up the scores and figure out which one.
Right. But again, how secret ballot that ends up being as far as the organization goes is probably hard to determine.
But you won't know. The grader will also be blind too, right? Of the 4.
Well, that's the intention, yes.
They won't even have their name on it.
Right. Right.
Well, inevitably somebody will get their feelings hurt. I think that's what you're getting at.
If anybody has any ideas on how to avoid that, I'm all for it. Because that's not the intention here. We want to make the biggest impact possible.
So I guess what I'm asking your permission for is if that makes sense to you guys, and if it doesn't, we need to revamp something. We'll have to redo the dates that are listed in here.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'd like to be able to publish this stuff on the website and be able to get these organizations started on applying so that we can do.
And if applications run in slowly, we can always kick that April 30th date out, that soft deadline out a couple of weeks. I've noticed that a couple of communities in our area have done that. Or if you think we need to set it out even further at this point, prior to me printing applications and getting them up on the website, I'm happy to do that as well. So
I think we'll have to vote on the grants themselves. I just want to make sure, has anybody got any problem with this process or us getting that out? Okay, that's good. And I don't think we'll vote on anything on that. Thanks, Cody.
I do like the idea of getting someone from Heron maybe on.
Mayor Martini's going to be very surprised.
Yeah,
That is.
yeah. I don't know, just a thought, I don't know.
I'm sure he's going to love that. Okay, we'll move on to item 11, Commissioner reports. Doug, you have anything?
No, we got we got our new person hired, should start or scheduled to start, I believe it's the 21st. Yeah, 21st. So hopefully we'll get that.
Can I ask a question about that? Please,
Okay.
just one question. It's not real difficult. He had restrictive and non-restrictive. Can a 5013C apply for both or just one? Is it just one or the other?
I think we can.
An organization can only apply for one grant,
They
but
can decide which one.
half of it could be, you could apply for 10,000 for a restricted pot and 10,000 for an unrestricted pot.
20,000 is the max. I think what he's saying is you could split it up if you wanted, right?
Yes.
So what you're actually saying is that 20,000 per organization, but it could be two different grants,
Right.
technically,
Right, unless, I would,
or two different buckets
I
within.
think the intention needs to be that every organization should have a chance at some before
Yeah.
one organization has a chance at multiple grants. So,
Okay.
but again, that's sure.
Is that contingent on how many organizations apply?
That was my next question.
Because
If we only get
my
three,
question was,
then we could say, okay, now you can go for round two, go back for seconds.
Absolutely.
Okay.
because you have some organizations, I'm just putting this out there, that has a specific criteria that they're wanting to meet. And then you have on the other side, because of the pandemic, they weren't able to get their upkeep. That is the reason why I asked. Was there two separate ways? And if so, could one apply for it?
I think we would look at a maximum of $20,000 for an organization if you want to divide that up as two different asks, a restricted amount of this and an unrestricted amount according to that. It may make it more clear once you see these papers.
Yeah,
that Cody
and
put
if
together.
we get to that deadline and we only have 3 applications, maybe we could then open it up for round 2 and all those same organizations could apply again. I don't know.
That was really what I was asking.
Yeah. We've never really done something like this before, so we just have to wait. You good?
I'm good, I just had a
Okay.
question.
Doug, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just letting everybody know we got a person hired. They'll start the 21st and hopefully we'll be back up to full speed.
Okay. Tom?
Yes, Marion Police Department report for the month of February. There were 202 city ordinance violations, 44 warrant arrests, 335 incidents reported, 137 traffic accidents, and 5 DUIs. There were 6,277 dispatched calls, 2,695 911 calls, and 239 ambulance calls. The narcotics unit for the month of February had 129 case initiations, 195 total citations, 75 arrests, 21 warrant arrests. They seized 6 pounds of cannabis, 32.3 grams of methamphetamine, 54.3 grams of a controlled substance, 5 search warrants, seized $6,215, had 6 alcohol offenses and 2 weapon offenses. And the Marion Fire Department for the month of February had 16 fire calls, 1 explosion call, 6 rescue and EMS calls, 8 hazardous condition, no fire, 5 service calls, 6 good intent calls, 19 activated alarms, for a total of 61 in the month of February. And that's all I've got.
All right, since the last meeting, Water Department had 2 new service taps, 3 water main leaks repaired, 7 services were updated, 5 meter pits were repaired. Did want to make notice to people that live on the east side of Otis Street, the new water main project will be happening starting the 28th of March. So you are going to see some disruption there for a short time. But everything will be replaced with new ADA sidewalks once that is all finished and completed. So that's been a project that's going to be from Otis Street along south of McKinley to Fair. And that starts the 28th of March. Upcoming event, I've got a flyer here from, this is actually called Aetna Better Health of Illinois for Free Laundry and Literacy Day at the Wonder Wash Laundry Center on North Court. That's March 16th from 3 to 7 and March 31st from 3 to 7. Free laundry, reading activities, free books, free food and drinks, giveaways, health screenings, and well-being resources. So you need to do some laundry and learn about your health and read. You do it all in one day. That's all I have.
Jim?
Street department still continuing on the sidewalks. We have some drainage work we're doing on Vicksburg and Central Streets. Continuing to clean up on the house lots over on Midway Court, trying to clean that area up. A cemetery, getting the blade sharpened and the weed eaters ready because the grass is going to be gangbusters here in a few weeks for all this rain we've had for sure. So, just an interesting note, we had 7 burials in February. We've had 16 already for the first half of March. So. Everything's good. Thank you.
Okay, anything else under miscellaneous to come before the council? Okay, we do have a need for a closed session under personnel, and that would be my motion that we enter executive session for purposes of discussing personnel.
I would second that.
Okay, before we vote on that, I just want to remind everybody, as I usually do, that's sitting out in the audience, that when we finish this executive session, which will take no action in there, if there's anybody left out here, we'll come back in this room and just simply dismiss the meeting. Otherwise, we'll dismiss in there, but there'll be no more action taken after this point. So you're welcome to stay if you like, but that's up to you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton.
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick.
Yay.
Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Stefan.
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Okay, guys, let's...
You guys did a good job on